If you find yourself aligning with Carrie Bradshaw and her views and how she acts in Sex and the City, then you may want to watch this video. What's up? My name is Yudie. I'm with the Bourbon Bougie team, and I'm here to give you a pop culture breakdown of women in TV and film. This is a series I like to call Don't Be a Carrie Bradshaw. It's been about 3 weeks, so let me give you a recap. Carrie started dating Aiden. We're into season 3 now, and Carrie is in a healthy relationship with Aiden, but her body is rejecting that relationship, probably because of past trauma. We can't really place it because we don't have Carrie's background. We don't know anything really about her family life, but from the behavior she exhibits in the show, this is what I've picked up from it. So Charlotte invites Carrie to the opera, and Carrie's looking around. She has her binoculars, and she sees Big from across the way, and he's looking at his binoculars too, and he sees her. So Carrie dips. She leaves the opera. She doesn't even tell Charlotte why she's leaving. She later calls up Miranda and says why she's leaving. The next episode, Carrie is at this yacht party, and it's like a business type thing. So she's networking, talking to other writers and just other business professionals, and Big physically bumps into her, and he comes up to her and strikes up a conversation. They small talk a bit. It's very clear that Big wants to have a conversation with Carrie, wants to keep the conversation going, but Carrie is like, no. She tells him that she has a new boyfriend, and then she dips again. And you know what? Good on you, Carrie, for setting those boundaries. I've been telling you to do this for like however many installations of this series I've done, and you haven't, but you're doing it today. You ran out of the opera because you knew that if you saw Big that you would spiral, and now he's trying to have a conversation with you, and you leave this situation because you know it's not good for you. This does not last long though, because it seems like every time Carrie tries to avoid Big, he just keeps popping up. So Aiden, we obviously know he's a furniture designer, so he has a booth at a furniture showing, and who walks in? The newlyweds. They come in and she sees them, and she gets so like embarrassed or nervous that she hides under the booth. And then as she's like trying to get up, she hits her head. And then Big and Natasha realize that she's under there. This entire episode, Carrie refers to herself as the booth bitch. And okay. And like Aiden calls her this once too. Having your boyfriend call you a bitch. Okay. Everybody's so creative. Like, to each your own. Like, I don't know. Why are you letting your boyfriend call you a bitch? Don't you think that gives him implied permission to call other women that name? So Aiden finally comes back, and something super funny happens when she's about to introduce Big and Natasha. So since the audience doesn't know Big's name, as she's about to introduce them to Aiden, she spills her coffee into like Big's like crotch area. And that is a segue. And then Aiden like never finds out his name and doesn't know that Big is actually her ex until um later on into season 3. So after Big gets cleaned up, him and Carrie have a conversation, and he's just being super rude towards Aiden. Aiden isn't part of the conversation, but he's calling him Paul Bunyan and Daniel Boone, like not calling him by his real name and just like taunting him. Mind you, this man is married. Mind you, he came to this event with his wife, but he doesn't want Carrie. See how he doesn't want Carrie, but he can't stand when she's with someone else. When she's finally setting boundaries and she's moving on and trying to be healthy in a separate relationship, now he's upset. Now he's jealous and mad. In the same scene, he tells Carrie he's getting out, and then he proceeds to say, "Do you know anyone that's interested?" You are so messy. You need to go home. Stay at home with your wife. You need to be a man, a grown man. The girls have their weekly lunch, and of course, Carrie tells them the hot tea. She's like, Big's leaving his wife. Samantha is like, yeah, of course we knew that. And same thing with Miranda. She's like, oh my God, Carrie, stop talking about Big. This man is literally married. Even if he's leaving his wife, stop talking about him. And then Charlotte is like, but he's married. Like you can't, and even if he says this, you can't indulge him. Like he's married. Like, and Charlotte is very adamant that Carrie should not pursue Big. And the way that Carrie reacts to her is very telling, because all Charlotte is like, is, hey, he's married. You can't do that. And she's like, settle down. I'm not going to do anything. But I think she gets upset about this because deep down, Carrie knows that she wants to indulge Big and that she actually wants to be with Big. So she will kind of do anything she wants to get that outcome. Big calls Carrie, which is kind of unusual because I feel like he's always calling her, but he calls Carrie and he tells her, I'm sorry about what I said. I shouldn't have said that. I've made my bed. I should lie in it. So Aiden offers to redo Carrie's floors. And because obviously he's making a lot of noise and Carrie has a deadline, she pays for a hotel for the night. So she goes over there. While she's over there, Big calls the landline and Aiden sends him over. And I just want to say, Aiden is just living off vibes. Like, obviously, he has no reason to suspect that she's cheating or that she's going to cheat. But it's also just like he didn't ask no type of questions. The first thing he does, he didn't ask who this man was, what's his name, how does he know Carrie, nothing. He just said, "Oh, she's over at the hotel. Go over there and let me give you her room number." Outrageous, outrageous behavior. Big calls Carrie while he's at the hotel now, and he threatens her to come downstairs. One thing about Big, this man has the audacity. And with Carrie, most of the time he's gonna be able to do and say whatever he wants, and Carrie allows it. Carrie comes downstairs to the hotel bar, and Big has obviously been drinking even before he gets to the hotel bar. So I think that's why he's already intoxicated when she comes down there. The power dynamic has shifted. Big doesn't feel in control of this relationship anymore because Carrie is now the one calling the shots. She's the one setting boundaries, telling Big, like, we're not doing this again. This time around, it's Carrie the one that's not checking for Big. Remember in the first two parts, I kept saying Big is not checking for her. Well, this time around, Carrie's not checking for him. Even though she wanted him to leave his wife and was still, tempted by him, she didn't make efforts to do that. His talking, his movement, it's frantic. It seems that Big is getting desperate at this point. He tells Carrie, Big tells Carrie that he was an asshole on the phone and that when he said he was leaving his wife, Carrie didn't say anything. So that made him doubt his decision. First of all, you shouldn't have been married in the first place because 2 months into it and you're having this like midlife crisis, identity crisis, when it's really not even that. It's more of just like a control crisis because you got the wife that was good for your image, but now you want Carrie and she doesn't want you and now you're mad. Mr. Big, you need to put on your big boy pants. You're called Mr. Big, but you're acting like a toddler. Like in that one scene when Carrie said that you're a 42-year-old baby. That is what it is exactly. Because why would you get married to someone knowing that you didn't want to marry them? And now the woman that you think you're meant to be with, you're chasing her down in hotels. Get it together. Carrie does her little skip walk to the elevator and tells Big to leave her alone with no avail. And Big is bumping into carts. He's stuttering. Once again, his movement is frantic. He is a hot mess, or I'm sorry, a big mess for lack of a better term. See how he can't function without his mistress? Okay, the next part is going to get real juicy. I'm going to cut it off here. If you're on YouTube, subscribe, share, hit the notif button to see when we post more videos. This was part 12 of Don't Be a Carrie Bradshaw. I'm sorry for leaving you on a cliffhanger. You know I hate to do that, but let's lock in. This is part 13 of Don't Be a Carrie Bradshaw. We left off with Carrie and Big at the hotel. So Carrie runs to the elevator, and the next scene is very like consent, non-consent. She is in the elevator. She is saying no to him, like, leave me alone. He grabs her. He force kisses her. She forces him off again, and then they both like kiss each other at this time. Afterwards, obviously, we know that they sleep together. This is season 3, episode 9. This is the beginning of Carrie and Big's affair. Carrie is cheating on Aiden, and Big is cheating on his wife, Natasha. Let's not forget that Big cheated on his first wife as well with her best friend. So I think that cheating is a power play for him. It's a way for him to roll the dice and get one up on you. The hookup with Big is haunting her thoughts, and she's very guilted by it. She confesses to Sam and she's like, "Oh, you're not going to judge me." And Sam goes, "Not my style." And we already know that Sam like condones cheating. She said it in, I think this was the first season, episode 4 or something, where that guy calls her up and he's like, "Sam, I left my wife." And she's like, "Who are you?" But then she also bumps into the wife later on and she like doesn't care that she is sleeping with a married man. Personally, I think that Sam should have checked her, but we know that's not in her character. I have a theory that if all of the girls came together and like basically, I don't want to say shame, but like I feel like, okay, I'm sorry. Sometimes in life you need to be shamed, especially if you're doing what Carrie is doing and you are actively having an affair, not only on your partner, but on his partner as well. And you are actively participating in it. The thing is that Carrie can never take, even when she is shamed, she rarely takes responsibility for her actions, no accountability whatsoever. The only time she ever considers it is if all three of the girls tell her that she's dead wrong and they're like, don't do that, you shouldn't do that. And like she doesn't even think that she's wrong. She only stops whatever she's doing because they're shaming her for it, rather than for the actual fact of like this behavior is not acceptable. So that's my theory. Carrie would have stopped right away if all the girls came down on her hard about it. The only person that does is Charlotte, which is not super surprising, but it was surprising to me that they wrote Miranda in this storyline to not be judgmental of her. Carrie verbatim says that she's spoiled with choices and that she's not able to make one between Aiden and Big. That's not what's happening, Pookie. What's actually happening is you have unhealed trauma and your body is one rejecting Aiden, but then also you don't know when you have a good thing going for you. So you try to self sabotage anytime something good in life happens for you. Carrie calls Big, and notice how he didn't call her first, even though he was a blubbering idiot and was crying all in the hotel saying how he made a mistake and that he was leaving his wife and that he only wanted Carrie. But they like have an affair. They hook up together. And instead of him calling her and being like, you know what, I'm actually making active plans to leave my wife, he doesn't. He sits back, crosses his legs, and waits for Carrie to call him. She obviously calls to talk about that night, and of course, Big is smug. He doesn't let her talk. He's just like joking around with her the whole time and being flirty and basically implying that they should do it again, even though Carrie is expressing her guilt. Once again, I just want to praise the writing in this scene because I think it's so brilliant. Once again, Big has the power again. But like literally the episode before, he's like falling over things and he's frantic. But like the snap, like this, the power switches and he screwed up her relationship, and that makes him feel good and that makes him feel like he's gained an advantage over her again. That same night, they end up sleeping together again, even after all of Carrie's redirects and even after her expressing her guilt, she falls back into this pattern. But they end up sleeping together again, this time in Carrie's bed. And Big makes a comment about how they should get a hotel next time because he doesn't like smelling the guy on her sheets. The guy? You mean her boyfriend? Maybe you shouldn't like be sleeping with someone that's in a monogamous relationship. Problem solved. Carrie says it all felt so easy and so good. It felt like I was a moth to an old flame. She has the craziest quotes in this show. Like she says the most outrageous thing every episode. Big shows up to Carrie's apartment and he's talking mad crazy about how he only wants Carrie and is like screaming at her window basically. And they're both in these like goofy fits. I don't know what's going on here. He also threatens her to come downstairs or he will come up. And I just want to say that I feel that this, I don't like to use this word, but I feel like this is very abusive because this is not the first time he's done this. He's done this at the hotel. He did it now. And then later on, when Carrie expresses more guilt and she's like, I think we should tell Natasha, he picks up the phone and he's like, okay, fine. Let's tell her right now. You want to tell her right now? Here, you want to blow up your life? He's using the power he has over the situation and using her guilt and everything that she has to lose to control her. So Carrie comes downstairs with Pete pretending that she's going to walk. Pete is Aiden's dog. And Carrie or Big is still saying all this craziness about how he's going to leave Natasha. And we all know that's a lie. And one man says he's going to leave his wife. Like, okay. Carrie is so in shock by this, she loses Pete. Then so she spends like all afternoon and like most of the night basically, or I don't know how long she's out, but the sun was up and the sun goes down and it's clearly dark and she's soaking wet. She is also smoking a cigarette after she told Aiden that she was going to quit. And she comes back home after hours and hours and hours of trying to look for Pete, and Pete is already back in the apartment. Aiden comes up to her and he asks her a question. He's like, hey, have you been cheating on me? And he meant, are you like smoking cigarettes again? But instead, like, I don't know why he phrased it that way, but it was super weird. He's like, "Are you cheating on me?" And Carrie thinks she's talking about Big, so she says yes. And then he has this conversation about like, "Oh, we talked about this. Like, you're not supposed to be smoking." So even after Aiden asked her this question, the affair still goes on. And another creator was talking about how as the affair goes on, the hotels get like dingier and grosser. And I was like, that is so true. Like they just like are in this gross like motel, even though like Big has a lot of money. He has big money. He couldn't like put up a better hotel. They're smoking in the hotel. They're about to hook up. Carrie says she's too hot and that she can't do this. Big gets mad and he says, "What? Are you saving it for your boyfriend?" And that line makes my skin crawl. It disgusts me, but I want to dissect it. So we already know, like a lot of people that watch the show, they hate Big. We know that Big is a douchebag. Carrie even says to him in the scene, "Don't talk to me like that. You don't ever get to speak to me that way." The problem with this is I'm glad that Carrie is sticking up for herself, but there are no actions behind her words. She lets Big mistreat her time and time again for years on years on years. She lets Big mistreat her again. And the thing is that she will always pick up the phone to call him after he's done this. Even if you verbalize it out loud to yourself and to your friends that you don't deserve to be treated this way, but if you put you know you don't put any action behind those words and you keep allowing yourself to accept this kind of behavior subconsciously over time, your mind will think that you do deserve to be treated this way because you keep putting yourselves in this situation. And I obviously there are nuances, and I'm not talking about like truly abusive situations, and not saying that what her and Big have aren't isn't abusive or couldn't be abusive, just saying, that there are nuances when it comes to this topic. Carrie finally tells Miranda about the affair, and they're like sitting at this bar, and Miranda's like, "I'm trying not to judge. I'm trying not to judge." I think it was because in that same like episode, she's going through some things with Steve where like people just keep calling her judgmental over and over again. And here's the thing, ladies, it's okay to be judgmental sometimes. Like, especially if your friend is doing something like this, judge her and say, "Hey, you know what? Even if this isn't coming from a place of malice that you're judging her, you're saying, like, hey, you really need to not be doing that." That's what Miranda should have done. And I feel like Miranda failed Carrie as a friend in that moment for not doing it. I hope you guys are understanding what I mean by that. Like, not exactly like shame women for the mistakes they've made in life, but more in the sense of like some people need tough love. Some people only operate from that tough love aspect and they won't be able to learn or grow without it. That is all for this week. If you want to keep up with me, I am on Burb's backup account on TikTok. You can go there and see all of my videos, all the parts broken down.